You ever throw a party, then wish you could uninvite half your family before dessert is even served? Yeah, that was me last Christmas. My name's Wesley. I'm 34, live in a decent 3-bedroom place just outside of Portland, Oregon. I'm not flashy or anything, got a steady remote tech job, drive a used Lexus, and wear hoodies more than button-downs. But I've done all right. I bought my house 6 years ago, paid off my student loans early, and have a little side hustle that brings in passive income. I don't drink much, I don't post my life online, and I'm not the guy who brags about his success. That's probably why nobody in my extended family ever thought twice about me. And honestly, I preferred it that way. See, in my family, there's this hierarchy. You know the kind. Loudest voices get the attention, the drama addicts get the sympathy, and the rest of us just get asked to bring dessert. At the top of the pyramid, my Aunt Cheryl and her son, my cousin Derek. Now, Cheryl's the type who once threw a tantrum at a funeral because the buffet didn't have her favorite spinach dip. She's loud, bossy, and has this uncanny ability to spin any situation so she's the victim. Derek? Let's just say he's 29 and still thinks entrepreneur means posting motivational quotes and selling dropshipping courses that barely cover his vape expenses. The guy shows up in designer knockoffs, calls himself a business strategist, and once asked my mom to lend him $5,000 to invest in crypto mining. Spoiler alert, she didn't. But despite all that, my family treats him like the second coming of Steve Jobs. So when I offered to host Christmas at my place last year, I didn't expect applause. I just figured my house had enough room. I could cater instead of cook, and it'd be less chaotic than going to Cheryl's cramped townhouse where the dog always smells like Fritos and there's a screaming match every hour on the hour. Mom said it'd be a nice change. My sister Jenna was on board. Even Dad, who usually avoids family events like the plague, said he'd swing by if I kept the wine flowing. I spent the week before Christmas getting everything ready. I hired a cleaner, set up a big table in the living room, even borrowed a few folding chairs from my neighbor. I ordered catering from a local spot that did honey-glazed ham and roasted veggies with all the trimmings. I even got some lights strung up around the house, not tacky ones, just clean white LEDs that made the place feel warm. And yeah, okay, I also moved a few things around. See, in my home office, which is just a small converted guest room, I keep a personal safe. Nothing crazy, just one of those fireproof digital keypad types. Inside, important documents. A couple of watches I inherited from my grandfather. A small stack of emergency cash. And one other thing. A very private envelope with banking information related to my side hustle LLC. I keep that safe tucked behind a shelf. Hidden. Locked. The only people who even know it exists are me and my accountant. But something told me, just a quiet, gnawing feeling, to make sure it was still secure. So 2 days before Christmas, I moved the entire safe into my bedroom closet and locked the bedroom door during the party, just to be cautious. I didn't even know I'd need that kind of foresight. Christmas morning, everything looked perfect. The table was set, presents were under the tree, and the smell of catered ham filled the house. People started trickling in around noon. Mom and Dad brought homemade cookies. My sister came with her girlfriend and a board game under one arm. Even my awkward Uncle Mike showed up wearing a Santa hat and humming off-key carols. Then Cheryl arrived. She walked in like she owned the place, wearing a full-length fur coat. Portland in December, mind you, is maybe 40 degrees Fahrenheit tops, and holding a tray of what she called artisanal deviled eggs. Derek was right behind her, wearing sunglasses indoors and recording an Instagram story. His caption? Vibes. Christmas tree #family success. He didn't say hi to me, just did a slow spin in my living room like he was checking the place for resale value. Oh wow, Wesley, Cheryl said, looking around. Didn't know you had it this nice. You've been hiding the good life from us, huh? I smiled politely. Just a house. MMHM, she muttered, eyes scanning every inch of the place like she was pricing it out. I tried to ignore it. Dinner came and went. People laughed, passed dishes around, and opened their presents. Derek gave everyone generic cologne sets. I gave out custom mugs with everyone's names and little quotes based on their personalities. Nothing too fancy, just thoughtful stuff. When Derek opened his, he held it up and read aloud. World's most ambitious underachiever. Huh. Very funny, Wes. Cheryl cackled. He's just jealous you're the creative one, sweetie. I bit my tongue. But it didn't end there. Around 7 p.m., people started winding down. The tree was surrounded by empty boxes and torn wrapping paper. I started cleaning up plates when I noticed something weird. Derek had vanished. And so had Cheryl's coat. I figured maybe he stepped outside to take a call or something. Then I walked past the hallway. My bedroom door, locked all day, was open. My stomach dropped. I walked in slowly. Everything looked normal at first glance. Until I opened my closet. The safe was gone. Gone. Just a faint dust outline where it had been sitting. I remember standing there in shock, my brain struggling to catch up. I walked back into the living room, heart pounding. Cheryl was sitting on the couch, sipping wine. Derek had just walked back in from the hallway. I stared at him. Where's my safe? Everyone quieted down. He blinked. Your what? My safe, I said louder this time. The one that was in my bedroom. The one that's now gone. Derek laughed. Actually laughed. Dude, chill. Consider it a family gift. I stared at him, unable to speak. Cheryl didn't even look up. He's just being funny, she said. You're being too serious, Wesley. No one else laughed. I felt heat rising in my chest. My face. My ears. Then I did the only thing I could think of. I took a deep breath, pulled out my phone, and said, good. Then you'll understand why I made a call. Derek snorted. What's that supposed to mean? I didn't answer. I just turned and walked to the front window. And that's when it happened. A pair of headlights lit up the front lawn. Then another. And another. Tires crunching snow. Red and blue lights flashing through the curtains. Doors slamming. Voices outside. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, watching the color drain from their faces. The air turned thick as syrup the second the flashing lights bounced off the windows. It was like someone hit mute on the entire party. No more clinking glasses. No more fake laughter. Just a heavy silence and the distant sound of doors slamming shut outside. I didn't move. Didn't speak. Just stood there by the window, watching the lights dance across the snow-covered lawn. Behind me, I could hear shifting, someone putting down a glass too quickly, another standing up too fast, and knocking into a chair. My heart was hammering, but I kept my breathing slow. I had to. I'd been waiting for this moment longer than I wanted to admit. Cheryl was the first to break the silence. Wesley, what did you do? Her voice had that signature shrill edge I'd heard at every family function since I was 10. The one that always came out when things weren't going her way. I didn't turn around yet. Just said calmly. You said to consider it a family gift. I just made sure it was properly documented. You called the police? Derek barked. Dude, you called the freaking cops? Over what? A box. I turned to face them finally, and I'll never forget what I saw. Derek standing with his arms out, like this was some big misunderstanding. Like I was overreacting. And Cheryl, her mouth twisted in this perfect blend of outrage and fear, like she couldn't decide whether to scream or run. It wasn't just a box, I said. It was my safe. And you broke into my bedroom and stole it. Derek scoffed. You're acting like we emptied Fort Knox. Come on, man. It's Christmas. I didn't respond. Because I heard it, knocking at the door. Not polite knocking. The kind that makes the room shrink. Dad was the one who opened it. He'd been sitting on the armrest of the recliner next to the fireplace, sipping bourbon in silence until now. But the second those lights showed up, he stood. Calm. Ready. He wasn't a man of many words, but when he moved, people noticed. Probably had something to do with his years as a corrections officer. The officer stepped inside, one hand resting near his belt. We got a call about a reported break-in and theft from this address. I stepped forward. That was me. I'm Wesley Carter. This is my house. The officer gave me a small nod. You said there was a safe taken? Yes, I said. It was in my bedroom closet. The door was locked when guests arrived. It was forced open sometime during dinner. Before the officer could respond, Cheryl burst in. This is absolutely absurd. You're not seriously listening to him. He's always been dramatic. Probably just misplaced it himself. She tried that laugh, the forced one that always made my mom flinch at Thanksgiving. But this time, it didn't land. Not even a chuckle. Everyone was too quiet. Eyes flicked from her to the cop, then back to me. The officer raised an eyebrow. Ma'am, if you could just step aside. Derek tried again. It's just a misunderstanding. If I touched anything, it was just to look around. We were curious, that's all. Is that why the lock was broken? I asked. Because you were curious? The officer turned to Derek. Do you mind if we take a look in your vehicle, sir? Derek blinked. You need a warrant for that. That can be arranged, the officer replied coolly. But considering we have a report and witnesses, and if the owner gives us consent to search the property, that includes the driveway, which he just did. I nodded silently. Derek's whole body language changed. His shoulders tensed. His lips tightened. This is ridiculous. But his bluff was already unraveling. The officer motioned to another cop still outside, and the second one moved toward Derek's car. I watched Derek shift between wanting to stop them and trying to act like he didn't care. Cheryl grabbed his arm, whispering something into his ear. I couldn't hear it, but I saw the panic bloom across her face like spilled wine. What happened next was a blur. Voices raised. One of the officers held up a bolt cutter they found in the back of Derek's trunk. Another carried out the safe, my safe, wrapped in a torn towel. Just seeing it made my chest squeeze. It wasn't a fancy model, but it was mine. And the fact that they touched it, took it, cracked it open, it felt like someone had rummaged through my bones. Cheryl lost it. She screamed, this high-pitched, full-body screech, at the officer, at me, at the situation. He's just a kid. This is a misunderstanding. You're humiliating us over some stupid papers and pocket change. He's 29, I said flatly. He's your cousin. I know, I replied. And he broke into my locked bedroom, stole my safe, and tried to act like it was a joke. The officers separated them and asked them both to step outside. Derek resisted. Cheryl cried. Neighbors started peeking out from behind their curtains. A couple of kids across the street pointed at the flashing lights. I stood by the window again, arms crossed, watching it all unfold. But it wasn't over. Not even close. See, what no one in that room knew, besides maybe my dad, was that this wasn't the first time something like this had happened. Not exactly the same, but similar enough that it stuck with me. Enough that I had quietly started preparing for the day it might happen again. When I was 18, Cheryl and Derek had stayed with us for 2 weeks after her second divorce. We were in a tiny house back then, 3 bedrooms, barely enough space for everyone. But Mom insisted on helping. Derek and I shared a room, and during that time, $200 went missing from a savings envelope I kept hidden in a drawer. When I brought it up, Cheryl accused me of lying. Said I probably spent it and forgot. Derek just shrugged and said I should have kept it in a bank like smart people. Dad knew something was off, but Mom begged him not to stir the pot. That was the first time I realized how deep the favoritism ran. So years later, when I got my own place, when I started building something real, I promised myself I'd never be blindsided like that again. That's why the safe had a GPS tag hidden inside. That's why I kept copies of everything important in a cloud folder. And that's why, when Cheryl and Derek thought they could walk into my house and take what they wanted, I was already 10 steps ahead. But what I didn't anticipate, what caught me completely off guard, was how the rest of the family reacted. After the cops stepped outside with Derek and Cheryl, the room slowly came back to life. My Aunt Linda, Cheryl's older sister, whispered something to my mom. Uncle Mike rubbed his temples. Jenna looked straight at me and mouthed, "You okay?" I nodded. But inside, I was trembling. Not with fear, with something else. I wasn't prepared for the guilt trip. "You really had to call the cops on family?" Linda asked, breaking the silence. I turned toward her. "He broke into my room and stole from me." "I get that, but it's Christmas. So that makes it okay?" I asked, sharper than I intended. She flinched. "No, I'm just saying, maybe there was a way to handle this without making a scene." "A scene?" I repeated. "You think I made the scene?" Mom finally stood up, voice trembling. "I just wish it didn't have to come to this." I couldn't believe it. "Mom, he robbed me." "I know, honey," she said quickly. I don't know. It's been a hard year for Cheryl. Maybe he was desperate." That word, desperate. I laughed. Actually laughed. He drives a leased BMW, wears fake Gucci, and spends half his time filming himself talking about financial freedom. Desperate? He's just entitled. "You don't have to be cruel," she whispered. I felt something snap inside me. A quiet string that had been pulled tight for years. "I'm not being cruel," I said. "I'm being honest. For once." I turned to everyone. "All of you have bent over backward for Cheryl and Derek for as long as I can remember. Every birthday, every holiday, every funeral somehow becomes about them. And the rest of us just sit there and smile and swallow it." "Well, I'm done." Jenna nodded slowly. "Good." The silence stretched again, but this time, it wasn't from shock. It was something else. Something deeper. Some people shifted in their seats. A couple looked away, and I realized, for the first time, that maybe I wasn't the only one who'd been holding back. But before anything else could be said, the door opened. One of the officers stepped inside. "Mr. Carter? We'll be taking statements. But we also wanted to let you know, the safe was open. Its contents were disturbed." My stomach dropped. "Anything missing?" "We'll need you to make a full inventory," he said. "But based on what you described earlier, it looks like some documents are gone." My throat dried out, because I knew exactly what was missing, and what they could do with it. The rest of the room faded as the weight of it settled in my chest. My side hustle wasn't just a hobby. It was the foundation for a real business. Contracts, vendor agreements, bank access. That envelope had details that could ruin a lot more than just my holiday. I looked out at the snow again, and that's when I made a decision. No more hesitation. No more second chances. No more covering for people just because they share blood. This wasn't just about a safe. It was war. After the police left and the last of the flashing lights disappeared down the street, my house felt wrong. Too quiet. Too still. Like the walls were holding their breath. Half my family had shuffled out early, offering muttered goodbyes and sideways glances like I was the one who'd ruined Christmas. The rest lingered just long enough to pick at leftovers and pretend things were normal before they, too, made awkward exits. By 9:30, I was alone. Well, almost alone. Jenna stayed. So did her girlfriend, Marla. They helped clean up the kitchen without asking. No small talk. No questions. Just the clink of plates being stacked, the dishwasher humming, and the occasional brush of a shoulder in passing. It was the quietest kindness I'd felt all day. When they left, Jenna gave me a long hug. "I'm proud of you," she said softly. I didn't answer. I just nodded, feeling like if I opened my mouth, something would crack open that I couldn't close again. After they were gone, I sat on the floor in front of the tree and just stared at it. The lights blinked cheerfully, oblivious to the emotional crater left behind. I tried to feel something. Anger, satisfaction, even relief, but all I felt was tired. Not the kind of tired sleep could fix. A deep, hollow kind. The kind that comes from years of swallowing things you never dared to spit out. I stayed like that for a long time. At some point, I got up, went into my room, and stared at the closet. The outline where the safe used to be was still visible. I crouched and ran my fingers along the spot where the carpet had been flattened. Just an empty square now. That's all it took for years of peace of mind to vanish. I opened my laptop and logged into my cloud account. Sure enough, the files I'd backed up were untouched. But it wasn't the files I was worried about. It was the access. The envelope they'd taken had routing numbers, account credentials, and some sensitive notes I hadn't encrypted yet. Dumb mistake. I knew better. I should have been more careful. My side hustle, Cloud Nest Systems, wasn't a household name, but it was mine. A software tools and automation service for small businesses. Mostly local bakeries, barbers, independent retailers, people who didn't know how to set up invoicing systems or automate customer responses. I'd built it from scratch over 3 years, quietly onboarding clients, reinvesting profits, and streamlining systems. And all of it could be jeopardized with the right combination of arrogance and bad intent. So I got to work. First, I froze the business accounts and changed every login, every access key, every admin credential. Then I called my bank, flagged the routing number, and moved funds to a new, segregated account. I contacted my accountant, explained what happened, and asked her to double-check all recent activity. Then I did the same with my legal consultant, a freelancer I'd worked with on contracts. By sunrise, every critical point of failure had been locked down. But still, the damage had been done. For the next week, I heard nothing from Cheryl or Derek. Not a word. But the silence from the rest of the family? That was deafening. The group chat stayed mostly dead, except for the occasional Merry Christmas memes from my cousin Blake and a Happy New Year text from Aunt Linda, sent to the entire group like nothing had happened. No one asked if I was okay. No one offered to help. Not even Mom. She called once, on New Year's Day, voice trembling. "I just wanted to check on you," she said. I waited. "I didn't agree with what Derek did," she added quickly. "But calling the police, that's serious, Wes." "I know," I said. "So was the theft." She sighed. "He's family. That's what makes it worse." We sat in silence for a moment. "I just don't want to see the family torn apart." "It already was," I said quietly. "You just didn't want to look at the tear." She cried. I listened. But I didn't backpedal. Not this time. I was done being the peacekeeper. In January, things got worse before they got better. One of my clients, an elderly florist named Mrs. Hayashi, called me in a panic. Her auto-invoice system had glitched, sending out duplicate bills to every customer. When I logged into her dashboard, I found traces of back-end tampering. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to raise alarms. Another client, a dog grooming service, messaged me saying they received an email claiming Cloud Nest was shutting down and offering to migrate their data to a new provider, linked to an account under the name DK Ventures. DK, Derek Kane. He actually tried to rebrand my service as his own. I sat there in my chair, staring at the screen, slack-jawed. It wasn't just bold. It was insulting. Derek barely knew how to set up a Google Drive folder without asking his mom for help. And here he was pretending to be a software entrepreneur. It wasn't even subtle. He had stolen my exact language from the Cloud Nest homepage and copy-pasted it to a Wix template with his name slapped on it. I reported the site. I notified my clients. I sent a cease and desist through my lawyer. But emotionally, it broke me a little. This wasn't just theft, it was sabotage. A personal, vindictive attempt to ruin something I'd built quietly, humbly, and without ever asking my family for help. And the worst part? I knew Cheryl had to be involved. Derek wasn't smart enough to pull this off solo. I spent a few nights just lying in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering if it was worth it. If maybe I should walk away, start over, build something new with a new name, new branding, burn it all down and disappear. It wouldn't be the first time someone in my family forced me into silence. But then something changed. It was a Thursday morning in mid-January. I was on a video call with a client, an anxious cafe owner in Salem, walking her through a loyalty program setup. Halfway through the call, she paused. Wes, yeah, I'm really sorry about what happened to your company. I blinked. You heard? She nodded. Derek actually emailed me, claimed you were going bankrupt. I didn't believe him, but I wanted you to know. I trust you. Your service helped me get through last year. Don't let this jerk take that away. After the call ended, I just sat there and smiled. That was the moment I knew. I wasn't broken, just bruised. And bruises heal. I shifted gears, leaned into work harder than ever. Not out of revenge, but out of defiance. I revamped the Cloud Nest site, added security layers to every client portal, and began migrating my systems to more robust platforms. I started working with a branding consultant, updated the logo, cleaned up the interface, started a newsletter, and for the first time, I put my own name on the site. Wesley Carter, founder, Cloud Nest Systems. It felt weird, vulnerable, but right. I reached out to every client personally, explained what happened in plain, professional terms, and offered them 3 months of service for free as a thank you for sticking with me. Nearly every client stayed. A few even offered to pay anyway. One referred me to her brother's landscaping business. Another left a glowing review on Google. Momentum returned. And behind the scenes, I started planning something else. A way to make things right. No, not just right. Just. Because while I was healing, while I was rebuilding, Derek and Cheryl weren't done. I found out from Jenna that Cheryl had been spinning her own version of the story to the family. She claimed I had entrapped Derek, that the safe had been planted, and that I was jealous of his success. That last part nearly made me choke on my coffee. What success? A failed dropshipping store and a TikTok account with 3 videos? But it didn't matter. People were listening. Aunt Linda told Mom that I had escalated a personal family disagreement into a legal circus. My Uncle Mike said I should have just asked for it back quietly. Even Dad, silent as he was, told me to be careful not to let bitterness run my life. I wasn't bitter. I was focused. Because here's what they didn't know. Cheryl and Derek didn't just steal a safe. They also left behind fingerprints, motive, digital footprints, and a growing list of angry clients who'd been targeted by their fake company. And thanks to my lawyer, I was now gathering every scrap of it. One day, they'd see how badly they underestimated me. But not yet. First, I needed to finish healing. To keep growing. By March, Cloud Nest had recovered completely. I'd even onboard 3 new clients. 2 referrals, one from a LinkedIn post that went semi-viral. I started sleeping better, eating better, smiling more. And in quiet moments, I started imagining how I'd deliver the final blow. I wasn't after money. I didn't want an apology. I wanted the truth to burn through every lie Cheryl ever told. And when it did, I wanted them to feel the same hollow, helpless silence I felt that night in front of my Christmas tree. It started with a spreadsheet. That's how most of my revenge stories begin. Not with shouting, not with confrontation, but with cells, filters, and conditional formatting. Calm, boring, silent. Like setting up dominoes while everyone else is still arguing over who knocked over the first one. And this spreadsheet? It was called Operation Smirk. Because that's what I kept seeing in my head. Derek's smug little smirk after he told me to consider it a family gift. That smirk was burned into the inside of my skull. Every time I woke up early to fix the back-end code he messed with, every time I sat across from a client and had to apologize for his lies, every time I remembered that half my family had tried to make me feel like I'd overreacted, that smirk would show up. So, I started building my plan. No yelling. No messy confrontations. Just leverage. And leverage starts with information. Step 1 was collecting data. Not just on Derek, though I had plenty of that, but on everyone who had tried to gaslight me into thinking this was all just a misunderstanding. Aunt Cheryl, obviously. Aunt Linda, who kept forwarding me Facebook posts about letting go and choosing peace. Uncle Mike, who told my dad that Wesley should have just let the kids save face. Even my mom, who hadn't called since New Year's. I didn't want revenge on all of them, but I wanted them to see the full picture. I wanted them unable to deny what was coming. So, I went into research mode. Derek's business? Registered under a vague LLC name with no license, no insurance, and a defunct website. His fake client list was plagiarized testimonials pulled from my own site. He had sent out emails from a Gmail address signed founder and CEO, CloudNest Pro. CloudNest Pro. I mean, come on. I ran a full background check, legally, through an online platform that compiled public data. He had a history of late payments on a used BMW, 2 unpaid parking tickets in Beaverton, and a PayPal dispute from a guy on Fiverr who'd apparently tried to design him a logo Derek never paid for. I screenshotted everything. I also hired a private investigator, not for anything dramatic, just to quietly confirm what I already suspected. Derek wasn't just riding on my coattails, he was shopping my clients. He had a whole PDF pitch deck that mirrored mine word for word, except with stock photos of people in suits and a slogan that read, "Built from passion, powered by ambition." I nearly gagged. Now, here's the important part. I didn't just want to expose Derek, I wanted Cheryl to feel it too. Because while he was the hand that reached into my closet, she was the voice that gave it permission. She was the reason he'd never been held accountable. And more than that, she had spent years whispering about me at family gatherings, making me out to be the odd one, the recluse, the loner with a laptop. I wanted her to know exactly who I was. And the best way to do that? Invite them to a celebration. That's what part 2 of my plan looked like. See, while I was gathering receipts, rebuilding my business, and making quiet legal moves, I was also planting seeds. Polite little seeds that seemed harmless at first. I told my family, through the group chat, carefully crafted messages, and casual one-on-one calls, that I was finally opening up more. That I was working on a big community project. That I had been offered some kind of award or recognition for my work with small businesses. And it wasn't technically a lie. CloudNest had gotten featured in a regional tech newsletter. Small blurb, but I used it like a torch. Sent the link to Cheryl with a humble, "Didn't expect this, LOL." She responded, "Wow, look at you. Maybe you'll finally move out of that little bachelor phase." I let that one sit. I needed her to keep underestimating me. In February, I sent a group message. "Hey fam, thinking of throwing a little get-together in April. Just a small celebration for some recent work milestones. Would love to see you all there." The responses trickled in. Jenna was instantly supportive. So was my cousin Blake. Uncle Mike said he'd try to make it if the weather's good. Cheryl? She didn't answer right away. 3 days later, she replied, "Sounds interesting. Derek and I might swing by." I played it cool. "Awesome. Would be great to catch up." What I didn't say was that I'd already rented the venue. An old restored barn about 30 minutes outside the city. High ceilings, exposed wood beams, warm string lights. Classy, but not over the top. Enough room for a catered dinner and a few little surprises. I even hired a videographer. "Just want to document the event," I told people. Something to look back on. They bought it. Because they still thought I was the same quiet, awkward cousin who kept his nose in his laptop while everyone else played charades in the living room. But this time, I wasn't sitting out the game. I was building the board. Around this time, my lawyer got back to me with news. With the GPS tracking, digital fingerprints, and testimonies from clients who received Derek's scam emails, we had more than enough for a civil case. Possibly criminal, depending on how far we wanted to push it. I told him to draft a cease and desist letter so precise and cold it could frost glass. We sent it to Derek's new business, email, and to Cheryl's home address. No phone call. No explanation. Just a tidy, legally sound warning that if he ever used the Cloud Nest name, branding, materials, or client lists again, he would face full legal action. Derek never replied. But 3 days later, his website was gone. Poof. The smug little Wix site? Vanished. Social media? Scrubbed. I had my PI confirm. His LLC was never renewed. He'd folded. But I didn't announce it. I wanted everyone to see it for themselves. In March, I sent out digital invitations to my appreciation dinner. Clean design. Gold borders. RSVP link. I framed it as a thank you dinner for friends, clients, and collaborators who helped shape Cloud Nest into what it is today. I didn't even mention the family, just included them on the guest list like they were any other name. That part was important. I wanted Cheryl and Derek to feel small. Like footnotes. I spent the next month planning the program. A short welcome speech, a slideshow of milestones, a few client testimonials recorded on video, and a brief Q&A with local vendors about how automation had helped their businesses grow. I made sure everything looked polished and professional. More startup summit than family potluck. And at the very end, there'd be a presentation. A very specific one. But I'll get to that in part 5. The week of the dinner, Jenna and I sat in my living room putting together little guest packets, schedules, thank you notes, free software coupons. She glanced at me. You sure you're ready for this? I nodded. Been ready since Christmas. You're really not going to tell Mom? Not yet, I said. She needs to see it. All of it. With her own eyes. Jenna leaned back. She's going to cry. She already has, I replied. This time, she can cry for the right reasons. On the night of the event, everything was perfect. The barn glowed with warm light. Tables were set with linen napkins and little gift bags. My logo was displayed subtly on a large screen near the podium. People mingled, laughed, sipped wine. Clients shook my hand. Vendors introduced me to their friends. My high school English teacher even showed up. And then I saw them. Cheryl, in a glittery shawl that looked more nightclub than dinner party. Derek, in a blazer 2 sizes too tight, eyes scanning the room like he expected applause. They approached me with plastic smiles. Well, Cheryl said. Look who finally grew up. I smiled. Good to see you, Aunt Cheryl. Derek nodded, but I caught the hesitation. The squint. Like he was trying to figure out what angle I was playing. He couldn't see it. Not yet. But he would. Everyone would. Because the final presentation, the one scheduled right after dessert, it wasn't just about Cloud Nest's growth. It was a live demonstration of everything they took from me and everything I took back. The barn doors were closed now, the chatter dying down as the lights dimmed to a warm amber. Dessert plates were being collected, mini lemon tarts, mostly half-eaten because everyone was too busy talking. People drifted toward their seats, sensing the shift in the room. It was that natural hush you get right before a speech, right before something important. I stood near the podium, hands resting lightly on the wooden edge. My heart wasn't racing. It wasn't even fluttering. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt absolutely steady. Balanced. Like everything that happened, every slight, every smirk, every guilt-soaked whisper, had been preparing me for this moment. Jenna caught my eye from the second row. She gave the smallest nod. Showtime. I tapped the mic gently. Hey, everyone. If you could find your seats, we're about to get started. Conversations tapered off. Chairs slid softly across the polished wood floor. A few people pulled out their phones to record. And in the back, Cheryl and Derek settled at a small table lit by a candle that flickered like it knew what was coming. I started simple. First of all, thank you all for being here. Tonight is a celebration. Of growth. Of community. And honestly, of resilience. A few people chuckled. They knew what I'd dealt with. Others nodded, thinking it was just a reference to entrepreneurship. That was fine. Let them take it however they needed. I clicked the remote. The projector lit up with the Cloud Nest logo, sleek, minimal, redesigned since the whole mess. A gentle ripple of applause filled the room. I walked them through a brief overview. The new interface, security updates, the client growth. Testimonials played, short clips of cafe owners, florists, dog groomers thanking me for helping automate their businesses. People clapped at each transition. Even Cheryl looked impressed, though her smile was tight. Derek leaned back in his chair like he was bored, but his foot tapped against the floor in quick, nervous beats. Then came the final slide. Not a logo, not a testimonial, just a title, clean and simple. Security breaches, lessons learned. The room quieted again. I took a breath. So, some of you know this, and some of you don't. But over the holidays, Cloud Nest suffered attempted sabotage. Not a gasp. Not yet. But a shift, people leaning forward. And what's special about this case is that it wasn't from a competitor. It wasn't from a hacker. It wasn't even from a stranger. My eyes skimmed the room, then landed directly on Derek. It was from someone who thought they knew me well enough to get away with it. Derek froze mid-sip of water. Cheryl stiffened, hands folding tight in her lap. I clicked the remote again. A split screen appeared. On the left, screenshots of the scam emails my clients had received. On the right, metadata, IP addresses, timestamps, login origins. Every line pointed back to one location. One device. One person. A murmur rippled through the room. I spoke evenly, calmly. In December, someone illegally accessed my home, removed a safe containing sensitive business documents, used that information to impersonate me, and attempted to steal my clients. A few people whispered, but thanks to updated digital tracking, every action taken using my stolen materials was logged. Every fake invoice, every unauthorized email, every copied line of code. I pressed the button again. Up came a PDF deck, DK Ventures, with Derek's face, Derek's name, and the fake Cloud Nest logo. Gasps this time. Real ones. I didn't smile. Didn't raise my voice. Didn't gloat. I just let the evidence speak. Tonight isn't about calling anyone out. It's about showing the importance of resilience and transparency in business. So, let me be fully transparent. I pointed to the screen. The person who did all of this was my cousin. A collective inhale. Cheryl stood up instantly. Wesley, this is not. I held up a hand, quiet but firm. Sit down, Cheryl. It wasn't loud, but the entire room went silent. She sat. I turned back to the audience. To the clients who stayed with me during this time, thank you. To my friends who supported me, thank you. And to the people who tried to make me feel like defending myself was an overreaction, my eyes rested on Cheryl. I hope this shows why boundaries matter. The next slide wasn't dramatic. Just a simple legal notice, cease and desist. Sent to Derek. Signed by my lawyer. Dated. Delivered. Another slide appeared. Confirmation that his fake business website had been taken down. His LLC dissolved. His access to my accounts terminated. Screenshots of my accounts being secured immediately afterward. I didn't need to twist the knife. The facts did it for me. As whispers spread. Families murmuring, clients shaking their heads, friends looking stunned. Derek pushed his chair back. This is ridiculous, he said, voice cracking. You're trying to humiliate me. No, I said calmly. You did that all by yourself. He clenched his fists. This was supposed to be private. You made it public when you targeted my clients. I replied. This is me cleaning up your mess. Cheryl reached out to grab his arm. Sweetheart, don't engage. No, Mom. He set me up. I tilted my head. Set you up? You broke into my room. You stole my safe. You ran your little fake business using my documents. Every step you took was logged. Time-stamped. Verified. I walked closer, but not aggressively. Just enough so he had to look up. You smirked in my house on Christmas night and told me to consider it a gift. This is me returning it. He stood, face flushed. You ruined my future. No, I said softly. You ruined your own. He stared at me, eyes darting around, looking for someone to back him up. But no one did. Not a single person. Even Aunt Linda stared at her hands, avoiding his gaze. And then, the final slide appeared on the screen without me even clicking it. The timing lined up perfectly. Derek's cease and desist violation report. Filed automatically when he had tried to resurrect the fake website 2 weeks earlier. The room erupted into murmurs so loud Cheryl practically collapsed back into her chair. That was the breaking point. The moment when years of coddling, excuses, and favoritism cracked like thin ice beneath them. I stepped back to the mic for one final message. I didn't bring you all here for drama. I brought you here because Cloud Nest survived something it shouldn't have had to face. And because today marks a new beginning for my business, for my boundaries, and for the kind of people I allow into my life. I looked around the room. Every eye was on me. I won't tolerate thieves. I won't tolerate lies. And I won't tolerate being treated like I'm the problem when I protect what's mine. My gaze landed on Derek one last time. This is the last time you ever get to touch anything connected to me. We're done. He didn't reply. He just walked out, fast, stiff, near trembling. Cheryl scrambled after him, calling his name, but he didn't slow down. When the barn doors closed behind them, it felt like a chapter shutting. A long one. A heavy one. The applause started soft, uncertain, but then grew. Real, warm, supportive. My clients came up one by one, shaking my hand. Friends hugged me. Even my dad, who had been silent in the corner the whole night, walked up, put a hand on my shoulder, and simply said, "Proud of you, son." Mom cried. But this time, she cried for me, not for them. Later that night, after everyone left and the barn was quiet again, I stepped outside into the cool spring air. The wind rustled the tall grass, carrying away the echoes of everything that had happened. For the first time in my life, I felt lighter, free, not because I took revenge, but because I finally stopped letting people walk over me and let the truth speak for itself. As the last of the lights dimmed behind me, I locked the door, slipped my keys into my pocket, and said the words I'd been waiting months to say. It's over.